here we are. The fourth and final universal component of effective communication, consistency. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what do we usually think about when we think of the word consistency? Maybe like pudding?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of pudding or something like that. But I think...
tapioca.
Yeah, tapioca. I think the consistency of tapioca kind of gets some people because it's like chunky but also smooth.
Yeah.
You know, like why are chunks in my smoothness?
Yeah, it could be disturbing.
Yeah. But I think that's really what we're talking about with communication too, is why are there chunks in my smoothness?
True.
Why are there these pieces in my communication that are not like the rest of it? And that's actually what creates the problem for us, is when some of it doesn't match the rest of it. Now, that's one aspect of consistency. Mm-hmm. But I think we also have like a frequency thing, which maybe more common.
I just love the fact that we stumbled across tapioca as a good analogy.
You know,
I love it.
Everything's tied together.
It is. It's one world.
You just need to find the connection.
Right. So talking about consistency, because I feel like a lot of times when people hear the word consistency, are you a consistent parent? Or are you, in your communication, are you communicating consistently, meaning it's frequency?
Yeah.
And we're saying that is part of it, that your message is happening on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But if you could have communication that's happening on a regular basis and it not be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got kind of the way I see consistency of the communication is in two pieces.
That's four. Yeah. That's two.
Two halves. Half being the frequency part. Mm-hmm. And maybe the best example of this is social media. When we talk about using social media well, we talk a lot about frequency, right? How often are you posting? Mm-hmm. How often are you posting this kind of post versus this kind of post versus this kind of post? What kind of content is it? How frequently are you engaging with people on your post? So it's a lot about frequency. Yeah. And I probably mentioned social media a lot for someone who really isn't a big fan of it, but it is a great example of frequency in communication. Now, the other half of this, though, is what I like to call purity. And this is where the tapioca sort of plays in as an analogy. It's how similar are all the separate pieces of your communication? Are you using the same words regularly to convey the same concepts, the same kinds of sentences, the same phrases, the same imagery? That's what branding, part of branding is about, imagery and language. You've got specific words that you want to use and don't want to use. I recently just saw some branding for I actually don't remember the specific company, or I believe it was kind of a video communication, streaming video communication company. And some of the words that they did not like to use were VoIP, which is voice over IP.
Okay.
And I was trying to recall a few others that I can't recall now. But they've got specific words that they don't like to use. And they have a whole other set of words that they like to use instead. And that consistently using only those words is exactly what creates consistency for their brand.
Okay.
Using those all the time and not these other ones. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by purity.
There's a purity of the message in that they're always saying the same things that hold together.
That's right.
Logically, they hold together in style. They hold together. A good word for that, integrity. Is there? If there's
definitely
integrity in the message. I think this goes back to something we had in a post a while ago about actually being a person of integrity.
Yeah.
But your communication, if it holds together, all the I think you said integers.
Yes. Yes.
All the separate things come together.
Yeah.
I think of, I asked somebody what the root word of integrity is, and they said grit, which I thought was awesome. But it takes some grit to communicate with consistency, that you have a purity of message, you have the same message, and you're communicating that message in its frequency, so it gets remembered, it gets understood over a period of time.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned that grit, because that is an important part of it. Consistency is hard. It takes work. And all too often I see it simply just drops by the wayside because it feels like an extra thing. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, we want to be consistent and everything, but we'll just kind of I think if we just kind of try to do it well, that'll happen. But let me tell you, if you don't work specifically on your consistency, I can almost promise that will not happen.
Right.
It simply does not happen automatically. It takes focused work. Sit down and talk about what consistency means for your specific communication that you're trying to make.
And so I would like to just challenge everybody in these 4 areas. So when you talk about motivation, when you talk about your empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, transparency, all these are building blocks. Consistency, you can't have consistency without good motives. You can't have empathy and transparency and try to be consistent if all those parts aren't holding together. And that's what we mean with integrity. So, my challenge is to do some evaluation. Take a look at your communication, and going back to what you said, Daryl, ask some of those hard questions of your communication, of your own motives, because not only will this transform your communication, but I think it'll transform your business and your relationships as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So take these universal components of effective communication, start to put them into practice, work through them one by one, and I think you're going to find that your communication is going to become much more effective.
Yeah. Awesome. There you have it. So we'll see you guys in the next series.